from burying his whole family in 7 days straight,
My sister died, my grandfather died, and Big Pun died the same week.
to watching 6 homies drop dead from heart attacks in 12 months,
I lost like 6 friends last year to heart attacks.
sending him into a dark mental hole for 2 whole years.
I was depressed seeing a psychiatrist for 2 years.
But real talk, Fat Joe been through way worse than this, and it's low-key a miracle the brother's still breathing. Let me put you on game. The Perfect Storm. Born Joseph Antonio Cartagena on August 19, 1970 in the South Bronx, Fat Joe came up from the grimy Forest Houses projects in Morrisania during an era when the South Bronx was straight apocalyptic. Drugs, shooters on every corner, and mad urban decay. His childhood wasn't just rough, it was survival mode 24/7. Raised by Puerto Rican and Cuban parents in a hood where crack was destroying families and gunshots were the everyday soundtrack, young Joe learned quick that life in the trenches was fragile and tomorrow wasn't promised to nobody. But nothing, not the block violence, not the poverty, not even years of hustling just to eat, could have prepared him for the year 2000. That year would become what Joe himself calls a perfect storm of grief that damn near broke him completely.
When Pun passed away, I went through depression. But I'm not just saying depression lightly, real depression. It was him, my sister, and my grandfather at the same time. So I was going through so much and everybody doubted me. Everybody, my closest friends.
In February 2000, Christopher Rios, better known as Big Pun, died from a heart attack at just 28 years old. Big Pun wasn't just Fat Joe's artist or his Terror Squad Day One. He was Joe's brother from another mother, his twin flame, his most trusted soldier. Big Pun was pushing nearly 700 pounds when he passed, a weight that put crazy strain on his ticker. When Big Pun collapsed at a White Plains hotel and the paramedics couldn't even revive him because of his size, Fat Joe lost more than his mans. He lost a piece of his soul. But yo, the nightmare didn't stop there. Within that same devastating stretch, Fat Joe's sister died from complications during childbirth, slipping into a coma after receiving an epidural, and his grandfather passed shortly after. 3 funerals in a matter of weeks, 3 devastating L's that sent Joe spiraling into what he describes as an inescapable darkness, a depression so deep, so suffocating, that it would take him 2 full years to even start seeing daylight again.
That made me get depressed. I was depressed seeing a psychiatrist for 2 years. I gained a lot of weight, started drinking. I just went through a lot because it was hard for me.
The depression that followed wasn't just being sad or mourning. It was a mental prison that Fat Joe describes as solving the most complex Rubik's Cube you could ever try to figure out inside his own dome. Every single day became a war against his own thoughts, a battle where even moments of potential happiness would get sabotaged by his brain sending him messages telling him we're not supposed to be happy. What made it worse was that Joe couldn't escape the reminders. Feel me? Everywhere he went, people would come up with their condolences about Big Pun. Every interview became a trigger. Every fan encounter reopened the wound. As he explained, everybody in the world keeps coming up to me, sorry for your loss, not knowing that they're triggering the depression every single time.
So what was going on with you?
Oh man, that was when, I've told this story before, is when my sister died, my grandfather died, and Big Pun died the same week.
Wow.
So it was like 3 in a row.
The physical toll was devastating, son. Joe's weight, which had always been substantial, ballooned to dangerous levels. He gained mad weight as he turned to stress eating and drinking to cope with the pain. At his heaviest, Fat Joe weighed approximately 470 pounds, putting himself at extreme risk for the same heart-related death that had taken his best friend. His diabetes, which he'd been diagnosed with at just 11 or 12 years old, spiraled out of control. He was on a collision course with death, following Big Pun straight to the grave. But what really broke him wasn't just the grief, it was the guilt, that survivor's guilt of watching his best friend die from obesity-related issues, while he himself was headed down the exact same path. At Big Pun's funeral, Joe had what he describes as an Ebenezer Scrooge moment, staring at Pun's young daughter, who was the same age as his own, and seeing his own future death played out right in front of him. The depression manifested in wild ways. Joe would step outside, and the sunny day would look like nighttime to him. He would go into his bathtub with no water and just stay there looking at the ceiling all night. His world had become a dark, suffocating cell, and even though he swears he was never kill myself because he'd still enjoy life's simple pleasures like a steak and some rice and beans, the reality was that he was dying slowly, painfully, from the inside out. What saved Fat Joe was a combination of professional help and a crucial turning point. He saw a shrink for 2 straight years, slowly learning about himself and how to navigate the overwhelming grief. The therapy taught him to recognize his triggers, to actively combat unhappiness by running toward joy instead of wallowing in the sadness. He learned to find happiness in simple things. Visiting his modest childhood crib brought him the biggest smile. Watching movies like John Wick 4 or Air, even just watching CNN became sources of light in the darkness. But the real wake-up call came from an unexpected place. One day, walking past the Big Pun mural in the Bronx, Joe overheard 2 random dudes talking about how they do it all the time. It's been 2 years since he died. Those words, 2 years, echoed in his mind like an alarm clock. 2 years of his life lost to grief. 2 years of drowning. It was time to wake up. It was time to honor Pun's memory, not by following him to an early grave, but by living, truly living.
One day we was doing the Big Pun mural. Shout out the Tats crew, they just did it over in the Bronx. And 2 dudes walked by. And then one dude was like, yo, they doing the Big Pun wall. And then the other dude was like, where? He was like, yeah, they do it all the time. You know, it's been 2 years since he died. Then I heard 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. And that's when I snapped out of it. Cause I was like, yo, it's 2 years, bro. Like, you got to wake up.
But grief don't just disappear, it transforms. And for Fat Joe, that pain didn't fade when the funerals ended. It shifted from his heart to his body, from depression to self-destruction. The weight of survival. If the year 2000 was Fat Joe's descent into hell, the years that followed became his climb back to the light. But this wasn't no fairy tale comeback story with a neat, clean ending. This was a brutal, years-long battle against his own body, his own mind, and the crushing realization that if he didn't change everything, he was gonna die young, just like Big Pun. The numbers tell a stark story, my G. At his peak weight, Fat Joe tipped the scales at around 470 to 480 pounds. Some accounts suggest he may have approached 500 pounds. For context, Big Pun weighed 698 pounds when he died at 28. Joe was on the same trajectory, carrying what he would later describe as 3 human beings worth of weight on his frame. His body was a ticking time bomb, straight up.
The weight loss. Like, I don't even recognize you right now. Like, yo, how many pounds?
Like 100 pounds.
100 pounds.
100 pounds. I dropped the body on him, man.
But what truly pushed Joe to make drastic changes wasn't vanity or even his doctor's warnings. It was death. Specifically, the deaths of 6 more friends in a single year, all from heart attacks. These weren't elderly men or people with obvious health issues. These were Joe's peers, his friends, people who looked healthy, who were telling jokes one day and dead the next. As Joe recounted in emotional interviews,
6 funerals I went to last year for, you know, they look healthy to me. They was just like me. They was telling jokes like me. You know, they was cool like me. You know what I'm saying? And they all died.
One funeral in particular shattered something inside him, watching his friend's daughter, the same age as his own, walk up to her father's casket. Joe experienced what he describes as almost like a Twilight Zone moment, where he could see his own funeral, his own daughter mourning, his own premature death. He realized, as he told interviewers,
so I was looking at it and I was like, yo, Joe, you know, us rappers, you know, we make money, you know, the girls think we handsome sometimes. We start thinking we superheroes, but we're really not. We're human beings.
The wake-up calls kept coming. Big Pun's death in 2000 had been the first major alarm. Then came the string of friends dying from heart attacks. But Joe also had to confront his own type 2 diabetes diagnosis from childhood, which had been spiraling out of control. His family's eating habits, traditional Latin American cooking with lard, whole milk, and high-calorie staples like rice, beans, and fried foods, had contributed to his early onset diabetes and lifelong struggle with weight.
So once Pun died, I went on a diet and lost like 100, but that was, you know, I didn't know what I know now. You know what I'm saying? So that ran its course to that 350, 360 going up and down like that. And then I just had to turn it up because, you know, I lost like 6 friends last year to heart attacks.
So Joe embarked on what would become a 15-plus year journey to lose over 200 pounds. This wasn't no quick fix or celebrity crash diet, nah. This was a complete lifestyle overhaul that required him to fundamentally change his relationship with food, exercise, and his own body. The approach was methodical and scientific. specific. Joe learned to view his body like a computer that processes nutrients differently. He cut out bread, pasta, and rice, the staples that had defined his Puerto Rican and Cuban upbringing. He replaced spaghetti with zucchini alternatives, used sugar substitutes like Splenda on sweet potato mash, and practiced strict portion control. Feel me? His exercise routine was equally deliberate but sustainable. He started with just 10-minute sessions on the elliptical, earning him the nickname Elliptical King from his manager, and gradually built up to 45 minutes. He biked around Miami for cardio. Crucially, he avoided trainers and rigid gym schedules. Instead, he advocated for baby steps to avoid burnout and injury.
The biggest mistake they do to you if you go to work out is if your man work out, says, "Oh, God, you big." And they throw the biggest weights on you. You never going back.
Don't need that.
You don't need that cardio walking. Then the elliptical's good on your knees. Before you know it, all you need is a week.
The results were transformative but gradual, yo. By 2011, he had lost enough weight to eliminate his insulin shots, a milestone he celebrated in his track Drop a Body, where he rapped about shedding weight. By the early 2020s, he had lost over 200 pounds, dropping from 470 pounds to around 255 pounds. In recent years, he's incorporated Ozempic, a GLP-1 agonist originally for type 2 diabetes, calling it the greatest invention ever for appetite suppression and maintaining his progress. But the weight loss journey wasn't just about the physical transformation. It was deeply intertwined with his mental health recovery. The depression that had consumed him after the 2000 losses was partly fueled by the vicious cycle of grief, emotional eating, and further weight gain. As he lost weight, he also regained mental clarity and emotional stability. He learned to monitor his mental triggers religiously, crediting therapy and sobriety. He developed a strong aversion to the family addiction cycles he'd witnessed for his survival. Yet despite his dramatic transformation, Joe made a conscious decision to keep his stage name Fat Joe. Why? Because he wanted to inspire others by reminding them of how big he was and showing them that weight loss was possible. As he explained in interviews,
and I feel like I need to call you Lil Joe. Like I don't even know if I should call you Fat Joe anymore, man. You
Still
look great.
Fat Joe. I represent for the big people.
You look amazing.
I left, it's funny you said this because I was thinking about this earlier. I left the name Fat Joe because I want to be able to inspire people, to remind them of how big I was and how I was able to lose weight, that they're able to lose weight as well.
the name wasn't a joke anymore. It was a badge of survival, a reminder of the battle he'd won. Today, at 55 years old, Fat Joe monitors his blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood sugar levels every 3 months. His diabetes is in a remission-like state through lifestyle changes, though he remains vigilant. He views his health journey as paying it forward, feeling indebted for surviving where so many of his homies didn't. But there's another layer to this story that complicates the narrative of triumph. In July 2025, Fat Joe revealed that he drinks 30 to 40 cans of Diet Pepsi per day. He called it a problem, but noted that doctors haven't explicitly stopped him. This revelation sparked concern among health experts who have linked excessive diet soda consumption to potential risks like increased liver fat, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, even without sugar, due to artificial sweeteners and other additives. The Diet Pepsi habit is emblematic of a larger truth about Fat Joe's journey. Even in survival, even in transformation, the struggle never truly ends. He traded one vice for another, swapping regular soda's calories and sugar for massive amounts of artificial sweeteners. It's a reminder that recovery from addiction, whether to food, substances, or behaviors, is rarely a straight line. It's messy, complicated, and ongoing. He shed the pounds, but the losses kept stacking, and just when he thought he'd conquered his demons, the universe threw him another round. The losses that never stop. If you thought Fat Joe's story was one of overcoming tragedy and coming out on top, you'd only be half right. Because real talk, the L's never stopped coming. Even as Joe rebuilt his health, his career, and his mental state, life kept delivering devastating blows that would test whether the lessons he'd learned could sustain him through even more heartbreak. The year 2000's perfect storm of losses was supposed to be the worst of it, but tragedy, it seems, had other plans for Joseph Cartagena. Throughout the 2000s, 2010s, and into the 2020s, Joe would continue to lose people he loved, each death reopening old wounds and creating new scars. In 2012, Joe's friend and former manager Chris Lighty died by suicide at age 44. Chris Lighty was more than just a manager. He was the man who saved Fat Joe's life by steering him away from street dealing toward legitimate music. Lighty discovered Joe, secured his first major record deal, and helped launch his career through Violator management. When Lighty took his own life on August 30th, 2012, after years of battling depression and financial troubles, including $5 million owed to the IRS. It shattered Joe. What made Lighty's death particularly devastating was that he had it all: success, bread, respect in the game, yet depression still consumed him. It underscored for Joe the insidious nature of mental illness, how it doesn't discriminate based on success or circumstances. It was a grim reminder that the battle Joe himself fought wasn't over just because he was feeling better. Depression could return at any time, even when everything seemed straight on the surface. Lighty's death also had an unexpected consequence. It ended Joe's long-running beef with 50 Cent. At the 2012 BET Hip Hop Awards tribute to Lighty, Joe and 50 Cent shook hands on stage, with Joe saying, "This is for Chris Lighty. I owe Chris Lighty everything." Their reconciliation was Lighty's final gift to them, proof that even in death, he was still looking out for the people he loved. But the tragic fate of Fat Joe extends beyond just personal losses. His life has been marked by a pattern of violence, legal troubles, and brushes with death that could fill multiple lifetimes. There were the near-death experiences from violence in the streets, multiple shootings where he claims he was targeted but survived through luck or divine intervention. In the mid-2000s, Joe was shot multiple times by a debtor during a 4th of July gathering, escaping death but refusing to cooperate with police, adhering to the street code of no snitching. In 2007, Joe was named as a witness to a double murder in Miami during Memorial Day weekend, where two men, Leslie Paz, 25, and Joey Navarro, 26, were shot and killed outside David's Cafe 2 in South Beach. Police initially sought him as a key witness, believing he was in the same whip as the victims. Joe's attorney denied he witnessed the shooting, and he was never charged, but the incident added to the cloud of violence that has followed him throughout his career. Then there were the legal troubles, yo. In 2013, Joe served 4 months in federal prison for tax evasion, having failed to pay taxes on approximately $3 million in income from 2007 to 2010. The case was particularly painful because it wasn't deliberate evasion. His accountant had embezzled money Joe had sent him to pay taxes, leaving Joe on the hook for over $1.2 million in back taxes plus penalties. Despite paying everything back before sentencing, Joe still had to serve time.
I had an accountant. Every month I'm sending them wire transfers. The wire transfers from your bank account to them is a paper trail. I'm sending them money to pay my taxes and everything every month. $25,000, $40,000, $25,000, big money. I had to go call Pitbull. Pitbull gave me his account right around here. It was still my account. To this day, when I went there, it was like, "This is bad, Joe. This man ain't pay you taxes in 2 years."
The accountant betrayal was particularly bitter because it came during a time when Joe was already dealing with ongoing royalty disputes with Big Pun's widow Liza Rios, who sued him in 2014 for allegedly withholding over $2 million in royalties owed to Big Pun's estate. The lawsuit, which settled in 2016 for an undisclosed amount exceeding $2 million, severely damaged Joe's relationship with Rios and cast a shadow over his legacy as Big Pun's mentor. And the legal troubles haven't stopped. In June 2025, Joe was hit with a $20 million lawsuit from his former hype man, Terrence T.A. Dixon, who filed a 157-page federal complaint accusing Joe of trafficking, fraud, coercion, and labor exploitation spanning 16 years. The lawsuit includes graphic allegations that Dixon was coerced into over 4,000 acts and witnessed Joe with underage girls. Joe vehemently denied all allegations, calling them disgusting lies and a coordinated extortion attempt, and claims the lawsuit has already cost him $10 million in lost opportunities. Through all of this, the deaths, the violence, the legal battles, the health scares, the depression, Fat Joe has somehow kept moving forward. He's continued making music, including his 2024 album, The World Changed on Me, which he dedicated to his brother Angel. He's become an advocate for mental health awareness, particularly in Black and Latino communities where stigma prevents people from seeking help. In his 2022 memoir, The Book of Jose, Joe laid bare his entire journey: the poverty, the crime, the violence, the depression, the grief, the redemption. He pulled back the curtain on the larger-than-life persona to reveal the scared, broken, resilient human being underneath. Perhaps most remarkably, Joe has channeled his tragedies into advocacy and giving back. He's donated to the Bronx Relief Fund after tragic fires, coached youth basketball in Harlem, and regularly speaks about mental health and obesity prevention. He uses his platform to encourage others facing similar struggles, turning his pain into purpose. But make no mistake, this isn't a story with a happy ending, because the story isn't over. As of November 2025, Fat Joe is 55 years old. He's lost his closest friends, his siblings, his parents. He's survived depression, obesity, obesity, diabetes, violence, legal troubles, and professional betrayals. He drinks 30-40 Diet Pepsis a day, a habit that could be slowly damaging his health even as he maintains his massive weight loss. The tragic fate of Fat Joe isn't that he died young like Big Pun. It's that he survived. It's that he has to live with the grief, the memories, the survivor's guilt. It's that he has to wake up every single day and actively choose to fight against the depression that lurks in the corners of his mind, waiting for a moment of weakness to drag him back down. Fat Joe's story is a reminder that survival isn't always pretty. It's not always triumphant. Sometimes survival means carrying the weight of everyone you've lost, every mistake you've made, every battle you fought. Sometimes it means drinking Diet Pepsi by the case and monitoring your blood sugar and trying not to think about all the friends who didn't make it. But survival also means being here to tell the story. It means inspiring others who are fighting similar battles. It means showing that even when life delivers blow after devastating blow, you can still get up, still move forward, still find reasons to smile. The tragic fate of Fat Joe is that he's lived through more loss than most people could imagine, but his ultimate victory is that he's still here, still fighting, still Fat Joe from the Bronx, a little lighter in body, heavier in spirit, but unbroken. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.